The Laundry is proudly produced by Strise, your AML automation software for faster onboarding, smarter monitoring, and growth without overhead.
Money makes a world go round. It makes a world go round. Money makes a...
Nope.
Welcome to the Soapbox, a summer special from The Laundry, the podcast connecting AML, compliance, and financial crime to the real world. Since Victorian times, the humble soapbox has symbolized free speech and the open sharing of views. We're channeling that spirit and inviting industry experts to share their hot takes on today's most pressing question. I'm Marit, CEO of Strise, and in this episode, you, the listener, will hear candid discussions about regulation, AI, pain points, frustrations, sanctions, motivations, and more. Let's dive into more of those discussions.
Question number 4.
Do sanctions make a real impact or just help us feel like we're acting?
Jinesh Amin, I'm the EMEA head of KYC, Retail ML and Sanction Circumvention Solutions at Quantexa. They do definitely in part make impact. Obviously, as we all know, sanctions are there to coerce a change in behaviour. Are they perfect? Absolutely not. We see and we hear and read about some of the circumvention techniques and tactics that are taking place that enable some of those parties sanctioned to be able to bypass those measures, but they certainly make some impact. Could there be more to be done? Absolutely. If we think about things like public-private partnerships, having access for private companies like banks, for example, to real granular specific information around some of the activities and circumvention techniques can certainly help to put better controls on some of the activity that's taking place. So I think there has to be a feedback loop through policy, the implementation of sanctions, as well as the operationalization of them within banks as well. So definitely making an impact, more that can be done.
Tanja Heikkinen, AML Arena producer. I think if you look at historically, they don't really make that much impact. I don't think there's any country that has kind of like changed their policies because of sanctions, but of course they are also important to make us feel good, but also to show that we are doing something and there are some things that governments shouldn't do and there should be consequences whether or not they actually affect things or not. So in a short, do they change things? Probably not, but are they important? Yes.
Sanctions can be both a lever of real pressure and the performance of moral clarity, I would say. When they're well designed and globally enforced, they can freeze assets, isolate regimes, and send a clear message that violations of international norms carry consequences. We've seen this with mixed success, though, in places like Iran, North Korea, and Russia. But here's the problem. Sanctions are only as strong as their enforcement. And in a fragmented global system, not every jurisdiction plays by the same rules. The result, loopholes open, evasion thrives, entire territories become safe havens for illicit finance, smuggling, and shadow economies. In these cases, sanctions don't stop harm, they just push it underground. So yes, sanctions can work, but when applied unevenly, they risk becoming an ethical theater. They may suit public conscience without meaningfully change behavior on the ground. The uncomfortable truth, if we don't close global loopholes, sanctions won't restrain power. They'll simply redirect it into the dark. So ultimately, the real question is, are we holding regimes accountable or just performing moral optics while the real cost falls on ordinary people, subject persons, and fragile economies?
I'm Jonathan Alm, a KYC officer at Alandia Insurance Company. I'm working with a marine insurance company. I see sanctions every day. I see them working as long as you obey them. And of course, if we have sanctions, we have circumvention, but we have to believe that if you want to do things the proper way, you obey the sanctions and and stick to them.
I'm Sven Martinsson, and I am the CEO and founder of Allega Chain Analytics. Of course, I do think that sanctions do have a certain impact, absolutely, but where is the true governance of it? You know, criminals are getting more and more advanced, be it with AI, be it with using even old school solutions, but just innovating them themselves. They get around sanctions. So how are you going to really govern it in an effective way? I mean, we can see this now with the Russian war or even Israeli conflict. You know, actors who have been around for ages, like North Korea, you name it, Iran. People will always find a way to get around sanctions. So how are you going to really govern that? And I think that's one thing that is still lacking today when we're seeing sanctions. You know, you can use several proxies to just open bank accounts and still transact with money. So this again falls into what has been discussed quite a lot with this kind of public and private collaboration that definitely needs to get better, not only in Europe but globally. You hear it on the news all the time, but there has to be more proactive ways of reaching the population and teaching them about what does that actually mean. You know, we know that, for example, looking into the sanctions that hit Russia, I mean, it wasn't very long after the sanctions hit that you still could buy sneakers and eat the burgers from very big companies still in Russia. You know, so you know, of course, rebranding or using what they already had in the stocks. But I mean, it went around the systems that we have today, and we still see that happening.
Question number 5.
What motivates you to keep fighting financial criminals?
I'm Jonathan. I am one of the founders from Allega Chain Analytics, and we are specialized in AML and fraud towards cryptocurrencies. I would say that from our point of view is that we believe or we want that crypto be part of the ecosystem. And for financial inclusion to actually happen, we need to start fighting the criminals that operate within this ecosystem, because with financial inclusion we can actually move money across borders fast, and I think we're just getting to know the benefit of using the blockchain technology. We can see that there's a lot of experimenter going on with it, stable coins coming in. We're seeing more and more banks adapting this part. But of course, if we don't fight the criminal or bad actors within this space, we're not going to have the boom and what we wanted in terms of expansions, work, everything related to blockchain in general can be better than it is if we have controls and frameworks in place. So we are doing our part in making sure that these criminals that operate within this space, they are not allowed to operate with just unregulated or unsupervised. So we're taking our fight for the crypto industry so that it can flourish and more businesses can actually come from this side.
My name is Terje Alexander Fjellvær. I am an SVP and head of financial crime and sanctions in DNB Bank. To stop the proceeds and to take the money from the criminals is what motivates me in the fight against financial crime. The criminals are after status and money, and if we can take the money, we also take away the opportunity to buy the status objects that they seek. So from my perspective, taking the money from the criminals is what motivates me most. And also working in the bank, we have the ability to make a difference regarding that matter. I also feel very motivated by protecting the victims of this cynical crime.
I have 3 points. So one is because behind every financial crime, there are real victims, not just numbers on the screen. 2, because dirty money doesn't just break laws, it corrodes the very fabric of society. And 3, because ultimately turning a blind eye means becoming part of the problem. And that's something that I don't want to be part of.
Here in the Nordics, at least, we are decent people. We want to follow the rules. If the light is red, we wait. We don't cross the street. So that's it's in our memories, in our souls. We stick to the rules.
My name is Chris. I work for Adversense, a consultant company where I am a director of financial crime prevention. My motivation is definitely when I see that we actually caught some, the people are getting behind bars and we have people in prison for financial crime. That's a big motivator. And in my view, we should remember when we have this financial crime, it's often organized criminals behind. Of course, there are some lonely wolves once in a while, but we have organized crime. So it is the greater picture and all the pieces of the puzzle that are collected when we see criminals behind the bar. That's one hell of a motivator.
I think what motivates me most about fighting financial criminals is that it's a never-ending game. They're constantly changing what they do. They're very motivated to get the money, and as an industry, we need to work our hardest to be stopping them. And that means continually evolving, adapting, and innovating in order to stop things before they happen.
Question number 6.
Is AMLA driving real change or just more paperwork?
I'm Janne. I'm the CEO of Fintech Farm Helsinki. I've actually just run into a study which says that if you look the big picture, the entire AML regulation causes more costs and issues and hindrances than what the potential upsides even are. I'm not completely sure about that, but I think it would be also a good thing to start kind of thinking in a big picture and kind of question all the regulation we have on top of regulation, that which are the actually effective parts, and focus on those things that actually make a difference and can stop money laundering, instead of just all the time adding more and more stuff on top of each other.
It's probably a bit both, just because all things like this do add paperwork, but they can drive real change.
It's doing a good thing. You have to believe in it for it to work. If you think it's only bureaucracy, it won't work. So believing is making progress.
That brings this edition of the Soapbox to an end. A huge thank you to everyone who shared their hot takes and opinions with us. We really, really appreciate it. And thank you for listening. If you've enjoyed this episode, check out the back catalog of 8 seasons and more than 120 episodes, and follow The Laundry on your podcast platform of choice. Please share the podcast on your social media channels, or tell a colleague about it, or give us a 5-star rating. We really appreciate it. What subjects do we need to cover next season? Comment on the Strise LinkedIn, my LinkedIn, or email laundry@strise.ai. Your host for this episode was me, Marit. Our producer was Matthew. Our editor was Dominic. Our engineer was Nicholas. And The Laundry is proudly produced by Strise. We build AML automation software. Visit strise.ai for more information. See you next time. The Laundry is proudly produced by Strise, your AML automation software for faster onboarding, smarter monitoring, and growth without overhead.